Hello and welcome. Today we're going to dive into a really powerful, ancient way of thinking that, believe it or not, has some surprising relevance to our supermodern world. We're talking about the cognitive framework behind traditional Chinese medicine.
So, have you ever wondered about this? How can a doctor figure out what's going on deep inside your body just by, looking at your face or feeling your pulse? It sounds like magic, right? Well, it's not. It's actually a really elegant, structured, three-step way of thinking. So, let's break it down.
All right, so our journey kicks off with the very first step, and it's a fundamental one. It's all about learning to see the world purely and directly, without jumping to conclusions. It's about meeting reality exactly as it is.
So this first step is called Xiang. Think of it as the raw data of reality. It's that immediate impression something gives you, its color, its rhythm, its energy, before your brain starts to label and analyze it. It's actually a lot like the Western philosophical idea of phenomenology, which is all about getting back to the things themselves.
And this slide is a fantastic way to picture the difference. Western logic can be like building a stone palace. It's built from these rigid, logical rules. But this Xiang-based approach, it's much more like understanding a growing bamboo. You don't learn about it by dissecting a dead piece. You feel its rhythm. You watch how it grows, and you get a sense of its living, dynamic pattern as a whole.
So in a real doctor's office, this isn't just some abstract idea. These observations are the Xiang. A doctor isn't just seeing a red tongue. They are observing a direct projection of the body's entire internal ecosystem. Each one of those little details is a window into the entire system's health.
Okay, so just observing the Xiang is only step one. The really cool part is what comes next. Finding the order, the hidden rhythm in all that raw data.
And this is where Shu comes in. Now, you might see the character and think, numbers, but it's so much more than that. It's the pattern, the cycle, the hidden structure. It's kind of like the invisible thread that connects a bunch of scattered dots. You first observe the changing seasons. That's the Xiang. And then you perceive the recurring pattern, the cycle. That's the Shu.
And here we have one of the most famous Shu systems of all, the 5 elements, or Wu Jing. But here's the key. These aren't static, separate things. They're phases in a dynamic, creative cycle. Wood fuels fire, fire creates the ash of earth, earth holds metal, metal collects water, and water nourishes wood to start it all over again. It's all about relationships and flow.
This is where the power of Shu just explodes, right? This system creates this incredible map of connections. All of a sudden, the liver is linked to the season of spring and the emotion of anger. The heart is linked to summer and joy. Our bodies, our feelings, and the world around us, they're all part of one big, interconnected, rhythmic pattern.
I know what you might be thinking. This sounds kind of abstract, maybe a little poetic. But this framework is unbelievably practical. It lets a doctor see how a problem in one area could be caused by an imbalance somewhere completely different. Okay, so check out this classic example. You've got a stressed-out entrepreneur, right? They're constantly frustrated, maybe a little angry. In this system, that's an excess of liver-wood energy. Well, according to the patterns of Shu, wood can actually suppress earth, which corresponds to the spleen and our digestion. So an emotional state directly affects the physical body in a predictable way. It's all connected.
All right, we've observed the phenomenon, the Xiang. We've identified the pattern, the Shu. And now it's time for the final step, understanding the universal principle that makes the whole system tick.
And that brings us to Li, the underlying principle. If Xiang is what you see, and Shu is how it's behaving, Li is the big why. It's the universal law behind it all. Think about it like this. You see apples falling from a tree, that's the Xiang. You notice they all fall at the same rate of speed, that's the Shu. And then finally, bam! You grasp the universal principle of gravity. That's Li.
So in Chinese medicine, Li is a whole set of these core principles, like the rules of the game. You've got the balance of yin and yang, that's a huge one. Then you have the laws that govern how those 5 elements interact. These principles are the logical bedrock that lets a doctor truly understand and even influence the system.
Now you might be thinking, okay, this is fascinating ancient philosophy, but what does it have to do with me today? Well, it turns out this Yang Shu Li way of thinking is more relevant than ever for tackling our most complex modern challenges.
Because here's the thing, this isn't just about medicine. At its core, it's a methodology for making sense of complexity. It's a cognitive toolkit for systems thinking, and that's why this matters to every single one of us, not just doctors.
I mean, just think about it for a second. When we train an AI to recognize images, what are we doing? We're teaching it to see the Xiang and find the Shu, the pattern. Modeling climate change requires understanding the deep principles, the Li, that govern a vast interconnected system. In so many fields, we're rediscovering this ancient need to see the whole picture, identify the deep patterns, and grasp the underlying logic. So when you put it all together, this whole journey, from phenomenon to pattern to principle, it really changes our very definition of what it even means to know something. It pushes us beyond just memorizing a bunch of isolated facts into a much deeper, more intuitive kind of understanding.
There's this wonderful Chinese expression that just perfectly captures this state, 心中有数. It literally means, in the heart, there is a pattern. But what it really describes is having this deep, intuitive feel for a system's flow and rhythm. It's not just knowing facts, it's an embodied understanding that lets you act with a kind of effortless wisdom.
So you see this path, from the raw phenomenon, to the hidden pattern, to the deep principle. It's a timeless tool for making sense of the world. It's a way to understand the hidden logic in any complex system, from our own bodies to the entire global economy. So I'll just leave you with this question. What would change if you started looking for the patterns and the principles behind them in your own world?